All right. We've had people come in, and so we're very happy today in this edition of ALN Thursday at 3 to have Stephen Course, the facility manager, not the facility management, although he is the facility management for his organization. Um, will be speaking with us in just a second, but I want to thank our patron members, Mantech, Onuma, and ABS Quality Evaluation, and all of our members. And before we get talking with Stephen, I'm really happy to say that I did not jinx the Asset Leadership Network last week when I talked about our potential week of April 27th. And today we have confirmation that we will be in the Rayburn House office building on April 29th, completing 4 days of events in Washington, D.C. that you can register for at our website by registering for April 28th, because we knew last week that April 28th was confirmed. However, since we last talked, DC government has agreed to host us on the 27th again to launch the um, Asset Management Best Practices Exchange Capital Cities, which will be asset management associations around the world helping their capital cities of their nations to share best practices through this network. And DC government is taking a lead on this. DC government has 14 sister cities. All of them are capital cities. So we'll be inviting representatives from the embassies of those capital cities to come and learn about DC government's excellent asset management practices and all of the other best practices that we will be showcasing on April 27th and April 28th. On the 27th, we will also have the United Nations, Daniel Platts, come down. Daniel is heading up the rewrite of the United Nations Infrastructure Asset Management Handbook, and the ALN is involved in that, as are many other of our collegial associations. So we'll be working together to help him. And through our relationship with the Asset Management Council of Australia, we're offering our value and benefits from asset management presentation template for the world. We want these exchanges to happen in a organized manner, and our format includes a couple slides for how you meet the United Nations sustainability goals, which are important for water, infrastructure, electric, all types of things. And it's going to be a really good week, including on the 29th, which is where today we got confirmed in the Rayburn House office building. We're going to have the inaugural AI and federal asset management event. So that I think is real important to guide the leadership thinking on how to leverage this powerful tool to help us and not hurt us. And we've invited the Government Accountability Office to present, and Department of Defense, and all of our federal executives, colleagues who want to talk about this very important issue. Then on April 30th, we will be going to Capitol Hill to talk with legislative staff who are putting language into appropriations bills, and we'll have suggestions based on our week of activities on how to do that. Guests from the Asset Management Council may include the chair of the Asset Management Council and John Hardwick, who is internationally recognized asset management expert. So we hope they'll be able to come. And we've extended invitation to our colleagues at the Institute of Asset Management. And if you can't tell, I'm really excited about that. So please go to our website, register. Only the 28th is there, but just click on that and we'll get you the rest of the information. I'm going to have Nick Kanoki, our director of technology, set up the forms properly so that when we make the big announcement on Tuesday in the newsletter, people will be able to go and just sign right up. So Steve, sorry I cut into your time. How you doing today, Mr. Course?
Hello. Not bad. I already spoke to you about accessibility situations already today that I've
And
experienced myself.
yes,
Um,
but
uh,
it's great to have you back because people have really enjoyed your presentations and our engagement, and we're so happy to give you an opportunity to basically practice on us what you're going to be presenting next week at the Facility Manager Technology Association. You tell me.
NFMT, National Facilities Technology. Hang on, NFMT. Sorry, linear here.
Facility management.
National Facilities Technology Management.
Gotcha. Okay.
National
So
in
you're
Charlotte.
presenting in person next week. So,
Yeah, next Thursday. I think I'm at 2:30.
and that's where I met you. So it's great
Huh?
to kind of be connecting with you as you're jumping onto that big stage. Congratulations on that. And thank you for sharing with us what you're going to be sharing there.
Thank you. Um, did you want me to take over the screen?
Yeah, you
Or
can take over the screen, and I'll let
um,
people know that Steve is the facility manager at Mid-Atlantic Retina, and he helps keep those eyeballs in good shape. If their
back
refrigeration, what? The
the
retina,
back of the eye, really,
the
the
back of
inside.
the eye,
We deal with the inside. Yeah,
not the eyeball.
I don't. I'm terrified of that stuff. That's why it's very important to me that they have the best conditions to do it as possible. Because of probably all the medical, it's the one I'm most afraid of.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Well,
it's good. That's why all our doctors are really nice because they have to be. If you're gonna do something scary, you have to have a really nice doctor.
well, that's
So
interesting because one of the reasons why we like talking with you so much is we need to um, involve more cognitive therapists and behavioral scientists in this whole approach. And while you're not, certified in any medical um, practice, you
I
have
have a deep
very,
special interest in neurology and psychology, sociology, and communication
because of your own conditions,
because it helps me to know these things.
and
It's
you
pattern
have
recognition.
overcome them or dealt with them in a way that allows you to rise in facility management, and you have expanded your staff to include other neurodivergent people because you understand. And I'm not going to start getting into your presentation, but
No, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, it basically one of my main theories is if the number one thing I teach people is root cause. Only when I talk about root cause, I talk about root cause of absolutely everything and anything in holistic connectedness.
you,
So before I go to the slides, because you're not going to see me once I get to the slides, I'm just going to just model some good habits for a meeting with neurodivergences. It's always good to give people context before a meeting because I don't like being put on the spot. I'm a slow processor, and it's nice for me to know what I'm getting into when I have a meeting. Never ever send me a text that says "call me," please, please, ever. So just a few accommodations I'm going to be using for to get myself through this, just so you can see what I have off camera. Just some good examples of accommodations and some invisible disability stuff. I will be using my visual timer because I have, just for the record, I am diagnosed with ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia. Dyscalculia day was actually, I think, yesterday. Might have been the day before. Um,
and
and
please tell us what dyscalculia is.
Dyscalculia is mine was originally actually diagnosed mostly as dyslexia, and dyscalculia was added later. But it's much more of a thing with me. It's basically it's generally thought of as numeric dyslexia.
Okay.
So it'll be not so much like you can't read numbers, but more of a sequencing issue. So, and when I talk about sequencing, we're talking about linear thinking would be thinking in a straight line, sentences, for instance. And the same
Okay.
with my dyslexia. Sometimes the words in my sentences get flipped around. Sometimes binary words get flipped around. Right and left for dyslexics is a tough one. If I'm driving, people cannot give me verbal directions. I have to have the GPS on because I have to see the map so that I know what visually I can think through pretty much anything. Once we start coding into arbitrary words like left and right, which are really just arbitrary labels, that connectedness between the arbitrary label and the actual thing, if we're talking about, that's a little fritzy. So sometimes instead of, especially if I'm, under stress or something like that, instead of the word I really need to say, I'll throw in some kind of word association word. And because my word association and connections that I make when I think of things is very, very broad, that could end up being very obscure to somebody else. But I can always explain how it's connected to what I meant to say. So if I ever say anything that sounds completely bananas, it probably sounds in my head like I said the thing I wanted to say, but maybe I say a completely different word that has a very, very tenuous connection to it in the sentence, which
This is so good to hear. And basically, just so everybody knows, it's been so good having a relationship with you because it helps me be kinder to everyone because you have helped me understand that there are so many underlying issues that people are facing. I don't even know what's going on. And treat everyone nice as your first option, second option, and third option because you just don't know what they're going through.
always be kind.
Yeah.
Always be kind. Always offer assistance and support. That is basically how we run our department and how we deal with all
Well, let's
vendors.
get into your presentation. I love it. I love what you're done there.
Yeah.
And I could just talk with you. What else do you want to show people? You've got
Yeah. So I will be using the visual timer, ADHD, very poor concept of time. So this is something that's really good. I'll use this when I'm doing admin work to bunch up my work and make sure I take breaks, doing like the Pomodoro style, because that way I can, if you're having trouble getting started, you put a timer on, you have some urgency. We have this in our CMMS too. Um, that means I can work for 15 minutes because, like, say you have to do the dishes and you're having trouble getting started, give yourself 5 minutes. You'll be surprised how much you can get done in 5 minutes, especially when you put the clock on. And then you'll get yourself a nice little break and then come back. So I'll dip in and out. I also have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So getting through my presentation, I will be wearing a hip belt to hold my hip bones together. I will be wearing a back brace to hold my shoulders back and an arm brace to hold my shoulders in because I have very loose tendons and you don't know it to look at me because I have it on under my clothes, but that's what holds me together. If I don't have that, back spasms and the chronic pain through the roof. So yeah, that's my physical accommodations that I'll be using, and I'm gonna put on some slides now. Let me go to share the screen. And do you see that?
not yet.
Let me try this one more time. Share
Now we
and
do.
you have it now?
Neurodivergence, invisible disability, and trauma-informed management traits as tools. I love it.
Yes. Thank you very much. So it's a very long name, but again, it's about holistic and it's about connections. So when we talk about neurodivergence and we talk about invisible disability, we are automatically also going to be talking about trauma informed management. If you have an invisible disability, there is something that is making your life harder that other people don't see. Your life will be very, very filled with invalidation. And this also goes for neurodivergence, especially if you're a high masking person. And when I say high masking, that another term that people used to use would be like high functioning, but we don't say that anymore. Um, but high masking is somebody that will be doing their very best to appear like everybody else, whilst and maybe they have the skills to kind of do that, they will be struggling on the underside. And when you are constantly living in struggle, especially struggle that people don't see, you will have trauma. So if we're dealing with this population, trauma is something that you really want to get to understand, and it's fascinating, or at least it is for me. But if
It
you,
is for me too, Stephen, and I'm just throwing your timing way off, so I apologize
yep.
ahead of time.
So we're gonna fly on to the next slide.
All right, but
Um,
you're showing your harnesses is
yes,
the perfect example of
yes,
masking, and that's what I say that you really help. You're the poster child for this presentation. This whole
yes.
area of looking
I I
to.
I love my job because I get to help people, and I also get to improve the environment for people like myself, who desperately deserve this kind of support, because it's very hard to ask for support when people don't always believe that you need it.
Mhm.
Um, and you're constantly proving yourself, constantly justifying, and it shouldn't be this way. Support should be given to everybody, and most of the supports, I mean, not my physical supports, but most of the accommodations that we would make for neurodivergent staff actually improve workflow and make things easier for all staff, just like anything in universal design. You put in a wheelchair ramp. I don't use a wheelchair, but I wheel a lot of things in and out of buildings. And that is a very, very helpful thing for me to have. It helps everybody. And it
Yes.
pretty much across the board, you will find that whatever you do to help somebody will help everybody. And will make things run a lot smoother. So one thing that you will see with neurodivergent staff is because we will tend to have, especially someone with ADHD, will tend to have a very busy career. They will have moved around a lot. They will have changed interests. They would have changed, and they'll have a lot of interests outside of what their primary job is. So whenever I'm hiring, what I want to know is, what are your hobbies? What do you do outside of work? Because if we look laterally, we can find, especially in facilities, a lot of skills that will cross over. A lot of what I've learned fast in facilities, I've learned because I knew something else from somewhere else. I was a stagehand. I've done a lot of stage lighting. Stage lighting taught me how to address lights and controls, which then took me to BAS. And BAS also helped me learn very quickly CMMS. And it's all transferable. Same with a DJ. A DJ is somebody that can read people. If you're a DJ, you can look around a room, and if you're good, you'll know what that room needs music wise to make those people move. And that kind of, understanding people, just being able to read the room, it's invaluable in facilities, because, I mean, ultimately, we are there to support people. We do it through the things around them, but our job is to make people people's place where they work functional. We take out the friction from their job, and when we take the friction out of their job, we take the stress out of their job, and they have more capacity to do their job. So everything we do is good for everybody. That's why facilities is awesome. It's great. um yeah, you also see on the bottom there the ADHD, the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, dyslexia, dyscalculia. Visual stress is why my glasses lenses are red. It's also known as visual snow. It's very, very common in dyslexics, and it's why the letters will dance around the page. I do have some links at the end if anybody wants to look at a simulation of that. And that's again a super, super interesting one. And then generalized anxiety, uh, massive help in facilities. I can walk through an office and my anxiety will tell me everything that could possibly go wrong. My job as a facility manager is to cover those bases. Now we're managing risk, all thanks to my anxiety. And all I really have to do as a facility manager is convey my anxiety and come up with solutions, and then sell the common sense to the decision makers.
Can you give an example?
We have anywhere we have an auto water shutoff for a water heater on a second floor, or one above a ceiling, anywhere we put in a floor drain in a bathroom, um, or if I'm doing anything to do with security or active shooter plans. But even if I just look at the way something is installed in HVAC, a lot of your chronic issues in construction in general start out as bad installation. And when you've been on the side where you're, fixing things, when a bad installation can make a certain part go bad over and over again. Undersized return ductwork will kill your blower motors. And you may have someone come out who can say, oh, yeah, this blower motor's dead. I'll get you another one and put it in. But if they're not seeing the big picture and they're not seeing the root cause, then you're going to change a bunch of motors when you could just change, one.
Excellent. Thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm sabotaging your timing.
Yeah,
And
you're good.
yeah.
We're gonna move on to the next slide though.
Okay.
I will also mention stagehands and event work. People, someone who's been a stagehand actually kind of is facilities, only it's time compressed facilities. You're going to have several trucks come in. You're going to build a show. You have to troubleshoot on the fly, and everything is urgency because you have one window to make everything function, and then it all comes down again. And then in your downtime, that's when you go back to your improvement. How can I do this better next time? How can we plan the logistics better? How can we plan the design better? So stagehands really are really, really good place to get facility managers and technicians. This is going to be hard for me to do here, but should we try and do it? Because I did this with you before.
Yes, please.
Okay. So this is an empathy exercise. This is not mine. I have to find a citation from this. I found it on a dyslexic teaching class a few years ago, but it is really good. If anybody has pen and paper, I should have told everybody to have one ready before. But basically, what we do is you're going to take a dictation from me, and instead of the vowels, you're going to use these characters. So what this is a simulation of a coding issue, because dyslexic coding is basically your ability, it's your phonological connection to the symbol A. We have the sound A, we have the visual A on the page, E, E sounds like E. That disconnect between the character and the phonological sample in your head and hearing it is one of the kind of root issues with dyslexia. And it's why you might say you hear dyslexics describing the letters moving around on the page. It's because my ability to hold things in an order, a linear order in my head, is not solid. It moves around. So my brain has to do a lot of compensation when I read to hold things together, which is why, for me, my dyslexia is weird. My reading comprehension is actually very high. My reading stamina is incredibly low because it's like a car driving in first gear with your foot to the floor. It is just running at full speed, doing all this extra work, just trying to hold the coding together.
I've got
So
my paper and pen.
you have your paper and pen ready?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to grab a random book.
Okay, I'm ready to start trans.
Which is actually The Art of Rapid Reading by Walter B. Pitkin, which is from, I believe, 1925. So I'm just going to read. I'm just picking a random page,
Okay.
and so I just need you to just imagine you are, me or another dyslexic kid in a class, and your teacher's reading a dictation. Nobody else in the room is going to have an issue with this because they're not doing this extra task, but you are, and you will always be. So, technical discussions of subjects almost wholly new to you and
Whoa,
enough
Steve, I can't keep
to
up with you
require.
because I am trying to get the A sign for technical TE at sign.
Exactly, and that's the point. If you just experience the feeling of overwhelm and everything running ahead of you, you now know how I felt in almost every day of school and why my notes would get weaker as I went down the page to the point of giving up. And then I wouldn't have all the notes by the end of the day. I did much better in classes where the teachers gave handouts because then I had all the notes and I could go home and study them. If I had to write my own notes, I wouldn't have notes when it came time for exams, which is one reason why a big accommodation for dyslexics is to provide them with a note taker.
Okay.
Or when I was in college, I was given a dictaphone and I was allowed to record seminars. And then I was given software so that I could dictate instead of write, and so that I could use those recordings and make myself transcripts. But if you imagine that being every day, what that does to someone's self confidence, because and I can actually show you my school reports. The teachers will talk about how I'm a very smart boy and I'm lovely to talk to and I have great ideas, but I must try harder when it comes to taking notes. And must try harder will be the sentence that you see in every single one of my primary and secondary school report cards.
Hmm.
Must try harder. And so I was trying as hard as I could, and I was trying and trying. But as you go through school, your self confidence just gets smaller and smaller.
So I
Because,
like where you bring this in the presentation. So let's keep going because you've got some great statistics to mention and hit.
yeah. So yeah, speaking of that, studies report around 20,000 additional disparaging remarks will have been received by just age 12 in people with ADHD. And this is similar for dyslexics. This is similar for autistics, but especially with ADHD and dyslexia, because the ADHD kids, especially if they're hyperactive, are also going to be branded a problem kid. My ADHD was diagnosed late. I have combined ADHD, which means it's hyperactive, sometimes it's inattentive, and I'm usually more towards the inattentive side, which people often describe as women's ADHD. Not in my case, but it's generally more associated with women, and one of the reasons that women are often late diagnosed, because when you say ADHD, a lot of people spring to the idea of the hyperactive little boy.
So we want to
Um,
get to the parts where this is beneficial in facility asset management.
Okay, we will do that. So I will mention now that LinkedIn actually does include neurodivergent traits as positive attributes for job candidates. Dyslexic thinking is definitely a job skill in LinkedIn, thanks to Made by Dyslexia, an organization out of the UK. So ADHD uh, is very, 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 very common in construction, especially service technicians, building engineers, and great facility managers in a lot of ways, because ADHD generally thrives under pressure. When I'm and when you're talking about attention deficit, it's really not a deficit. It's an overwhelm. You are paying attention to everything. Everything is attacking you with information. Very, very high volume. But if you give me an emergency situation, I don't have to pick what to deal with, and I can do everything in the correct order because I have the urgency to give me focus. So you'll see this a lot with EMS, fire, police, anybody who deals with chaotic emergent situations. You will find people with ADHD in those situations, and also from going through those and from the way you're brought up, a lot of resiliency if you've made it there, and a lot of creativity, flexibility, and mental agility. Um, Dyslexia is often a lot of CEOs have dyslexia. I'll get to that later. But visual three-dimensional thinking is a large part of it. Dyslexics are not necessarily people that can't do something. They're people that do something a certain way. For me, for me to truly understand it, I have to understand it visually. And when I do understand it visually, I'll have a completely three-dimensional model of it in my head, and I can manipulate that and I can troubleshoot with it. almost any of my sites, I pretty much know where all of our drains go. I know what they're made out of. I know where the pinch points may be. And if someone calls me with a very, very small piece of information, which is generally what you're going to get, um, coming from people who are, that's not their job. I'm very good at translating lay people's description of what they're experiencing into technically what's actually going on. And then if I'm sending a vendor because that's in another state, that means I can then give that vendor a lot of information so they show up with the right people, with the right tools, with the right parts. Um, and so for me as a facility manager with two technicians, who does a lot of coordination and dispatching, it's invaluable. And as far as like the cathedral thinking of FM is just overall strategy. And I don't look at things as day to day. I look at things as I am building something for the next person who has my job. I want to make their job as easy as possible. I want them to have something to build on, and eventually I want everything to be perfect. But I'm building a structure which will support anybody who works with it, so they can support others to do their jobs, who can then support our patients when they come in.
The more
It's
traits as tools are in the following slides, aren't they?
Yep. So when we talk about autism, autism is generally associated with more of the detail oriented, very, very thorough, more visual thinking, like your Temple Grandin, and more of a thriving with routine and structure. It's that routine and repetition, and just knowing what's coming, because it's shifting between tasks unexpectedly and having things being put on the spot is generally something you want to avoid. But across the board, most neurodivergences, you will, because of people's life experience, they will have a great deal of empathy. Um, and because of people's emotional connectedness, in that someone with neurodivergence will notice a lot more body language, small facial movements. I will actually, I have a little twitch when I think someone is upset about something, because it affects me. Before they know about it, sometimes I'll be picking up on it. And that's just picking up off of body language and unspoken things like that.
And I
Um,
love how you relate facility management to taking care of people and
mhm.
for using neurodivergent tools as traits or traits as tools can help them do their job.
Yeah, because you will find a lot of us are hyper ethical and very, very honest, and it will get us in trouble because we will tell hard truths. When I took this job, and when I take any job, at interview, I will usually tell my boss, please understand, I will always tell you the truth. You might not always like it, but I will always tell it to you, and I will always give you bad news fast, because then we can deal with it. But I absolutely will not and am incapable of dressing things up, and definitely am really just abhor lying. I cannot do it. And I don't want to do it, and I will not do it.
Yeah, what a great quality.
Um, can get you in a lot of problems sometimes. Though.
As can lying. And I'd rather
That's
have
true. That's
problems than
true.
not lying. Yeah.
But the thing is, honesty might get you in trouble short term, but then you'll deal with it, and then things will be better.
There
And
you
that's
go.
that's what we always want. So, and I won't get into the CMS part right now, but if we talk about what a facility manager does, core skills that I want to see in people is we deal with asset management, technical trade knowledge, space planning, project management, relationship management, compliance, prioritization, transition to a long-term strategy if you're coming into a place that doesn't have facilities to begin with, and most of all, communication. We are really kind of like the center of the pinwheel between all the other departments. If IT is going to do something and it's going to step on clinical's toes, I speak to everybody in the company. Everybody's in their department. They may not speak to the other departments as much. Because I speak to everybody, I know exactly how anything anybody could do is going to affect somebody else, and I'll make sure they consider them. I have a picture of Felix the cat here because My laptop bag is insanely heavy, but I generally have a reputation for having pretty much whatever I need in there, or at least something I can get by with to pretty much deal with all kinds of situations, especially if it's something quick, like picking a lock or something like that.
And for the younger people, Felix the cat had a magic bag of tricks
It's
to,
true. He can take anything he possibly needs out of that bag.
yes.
Um, so I'm going to skip by this one. Uh, skip by this one because I've already said this one too. But yeah, we have the widest understanding of any impact of anything that happens in the company because we know everybody. And if you don't know everybody, then start talking because facilities gets a lot easier when you talk to everybody. And also, I mean, it's why you get up in the morning. You're here to help these people. I like these people, and so I talk to them. Um, so do you want me to talk? Do you want more of the neurodivergent 101 or you want me to give you more of the tools as traits?
Tools as traits.
All right, so we're going to skip my dyslexia 101 where I talk about brain. Um,
Traits as tools. I always say it wrong.
yeah. That's working with us. That's training. That's also how support. These are
Well,
examples.
this kind of hits both, right? It
Yeah,
talks
this
about,
kind of hits both.
yeah,
So just to give examples of some famous neurodivergence, although there are infinitely more than this. Einstein was a dyslexic. He's a very visual thinker. He often talked about thought experiments. He would sit there and do the experiments in his head. I've actually prototyped things for people um, by thinking very hard about them. I have a very innate understanding of physics because I've dealt with it in every capacity you probably ever could, whether it's pressure within a system, whether it's friction, material sciences, gravity, forces, all of those things. If I make a model in my head of things that I know, it works exactly like the real thing. And that intuition usually helps me get real close so that I know what test to do to prove my theory so that I can come up with a solution and I can make sure the solution works in my head. If it works in my head, it works. Temple Grandin, she redesigned the way our slaughterhouses work, and the way that by following the way that the cattle would walk around, they walk in curves. They don't walk in straight lines and hard 90-degree turns. And by reducing that friction of forcing them through these rigid corners and things like that, then lowered the cortisol in the meat, which made it better quality, amongst other things. Ingvar Kamprad, founder of IKEA, also a dyslexic. If you look at their manuals, that makes sense. They are entirely visual.
I never realized that. Thank you for saying that. Yes.
So when it comes down to me training or me writing protocols or me putting up, I like to put up mind maps next to things with pictures, with arrows, with fingers pointing at things. So that if you have to go and silence an alarm panel while you do something, you have a step by step guide which will visually lead you through it. Because if I tell you in words, it might not give you the confidence to actually feel comfortable doing it. If you have pictures and they're done thoroughly in order, you've already performed that task in your head when you go to push the button for the first time. The same as when I got out of tech school, the first time I ever opened a furnace to go and work on it, and I saw that sticker that said, "You must be a professional to touch this." I had a weird moment where I thought, oh, I am. And yet I felt uncomfortable because I hadn't had enough experience yet. MI6 actively looks to recruit neurodivergent staff as analysts for pattern recognition skills and big picture thinking, and also detail oriented spies with high emotional intelligence that thrive under pressure. All of these are neurodivergent traits, and they are actually sought out by MI6. 50% of NASA employees are dyslexic. They are deliberately hired for that because of their excellent critical thinking skills and spatial awareness. All of these things are also critical in FM because we need all of those skills: people skills, spatial awareness for, space planning, critical thinking skills, absolutely, especially if we're, weighing up new systems. Um, Here's just a quick visual and a nice quote from Albert Einstein. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it's stupid. That is probably the best quote to sum up the feeling of neurodivergence in a society that is not built for them, because it was built by other people, not because they're wrong, but they're working in somebody else's structure and it's not a fit. If we make the structure a better fit for everybody, we get the benefit of everybody's different skills and everybody's, different inputs. And that's ultimately what I want for everybody, is the amount of wasted talent that we have in the world for different things. It must be incredibly high just because the systems do not work for everybody. Um, so this is more of a support one. So I'm going to skip this one.
Okay.
Would you like me to skip this one? This one's more of a
Yeah,
support
that's
one.
fine.
Um, so yeah, one thing that's really important. This is a support one, but it's very important. And especially it applies to me. When I came into my job here, and when I've gone into most of my facilities jobs, I have worked solo. I've been given properties. My first facilities job, I was given 3 satellite properties, and I was basically left to it. About the first week I was there, I'd call my boss and say, I would like to do this. Can I do this? And he'd say, sure. I stopped calling after week 2 because I felt a little bit annoying and I kind of got a bit more confidence. And then as I started to make the changes and things started to get better, the tenants started to get happier. And the whole building started being nicer to each other because the building was a nicer place to be. And everybody understood that when they had a problem, someone was going to show up and it was going to get taken care of and they weren't going to be invalidated. And, but at the same time, for neurodivergence, very burnout prone, but that's not really a problem if you have control over your workflow. If you have control over your workflow, facilities gives you such a diversity of work that you can do. If I have someone who's been dealing with multiple situations where they're on the phone with vendors, coordinating big complex things and doing a lot of talking, probably in the next week, I will throw them a day of touch up painting and they can go and put on some headphones for the day. They will have a productive day. We'll get a whole bunch of painting done and they won't have to talk or think all day long. That kind of mental rest that we can give people in facilities, as far as techs go, is fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, so, but and when we're doing that, what we're trying to do is basically, keep the motor cool and not run too many background processes in our computer being our brain. Because the more things someone has running in the background, the less capacity you have and the closer you are to overheating. And so things that people could have running in the background could be their invisible disabilities. It could be things they have happening at home that they need to take care of. And so one of our rules is always family first. And so if my one technician, Paul, like we had a snow day the other week, automatically, if his son is off for a snow day, he was like, I've never actually been off with my son before to go sledding. I was like, we will cope. We will cope.
You
Go
have
sledding.
to stay home. You cannot come to
You
work.
must go home. And but I was really proud of him for asking that. I mean, he knew I was going to say yes, but when he first came to me, he came from me from being an electrician, where it was always similar to me in HVAC. Hey man, we get busy. You work till we're done, and you could be coming home 7, 8, and you rush. You're pushing to get through that last call of the day, and then we're going to give you another 2. And
Yeah.
you want to give someone PTSD, give them a stressful situation, and don't let them know when it's going to end. And that's what we see a lot in construction, especially in the service trades. So if you pull someone from the service trades into facilities and you have the flexibility to teach them that they don't have to do that anymore, they will have more capacity to do the work that they do. The work will be of a higher quality, and they're not going to leave because they're going to be happy and they're going to see their kid grow up and spend time with them. And that's just, one of the many, many good things that we can do for our staff, which they're going to then pass on to how they treat other people. When they show up to someone who is having an issue, um, you'll see in some companies that the maintenance guys will be like, "Oh, that person is complaining again," and there'll be a lot of invalidation. We show up to everybody, and whatever, if it's bothering you that much, the issue that I'm solving is that it's bothering you that much. It might not be a big deal to me, but other things are a big deal to me. I know by taking that stress off you, you're going to have a better life in general. And you're also going to have more capacity to do your thing that I don't do. And this is how we all support each other. And as a team, this is just, it ripples out to everybody. It really does. Um, so let me skip along. So when I'm talking about giving people what they need or giving a project what it needs, we're always going to talk about resources, but I like to expand resources to the ability to rest and get rest, the ability to think creatively. If you don't get to think creatively and someone maybe doesn't get to, I try to make sure that everybody on my team gets to manage different projects from time to time. I'll start people out with smaller projects. I'll do them with them the first time around, and I will usually bore them with all kinds of nuances that and improvements and things, and teach them how to think and how to look at a job before we do it. So that if I look at the plans, like one thing that we always do is we love to do radius edges on any countertop we do, because a hard corner is never a good thing. It's too exposed edges to have the laminates peel off, and it's a sharp corner for somebody to bump into. uh, you just get rid of them. That millwork would last longer. You're not going to hurt anybody. You're not going to rip anybody's clothes. The laminates are not going to fall off. And all these little details, because once people really get a taste for seeing the details and seeing the improvements that they can recommend in jobs, then they get more agency. And when you have more agency, you have more ownership. And when you have more agency and ownership, then you have mastery of your job. And when you have these things, you have job satisfaction. And if you have job satisfaction, coming to work in the morning is a good thing. I go and do a good thing. I help people, and I'm good at it, and I like to think about it. It's it's much better than just throwing tasks at people and here's another task, another task, another task, because that's monotonous, and that actually really removes a lot of people's intuition, and is why we see a lot of, well, why didn't he just do this thing? It was right there next to the thing he was doing. Because he didn't have the self-confidence to make that decision. He does, like, people that do what they're told will miss adjacent things that are next to them. And one thing that I like to teach is, if we go to an office to do this, how many other things can you find to put on the board? How many other things
Interesting.
can you knock out while you're there? Because there's three of us, and we have about, I think, 24 offices now in 3 states. So for us to get a lot done, it's really important that we do the little touches every time we're in the office. Make sure you have a good chat with everybody while you're there, because somebody's little complaint mid conversation, if you think about it, there's probably a root cause for that, and it might be the clue that solves some other issue down the road, or it might be something that gets you looking at something before it goes wrong. It was one of the things that I was taught when I started in HVAC. My mentor was very close to retirement, and he always preached to me, get to know your customers, get to know their habits, the way that they live, and listen to any stories they want to tell you about things, because it all relates. To the point where I used to have, I remember on Thanksgiving once I had a service call come in, and I would solve a lot of problems over the phone, because people would say the furnace was working and then all of a sudden it wasn't. And I'm like, okay, so it hasn't been going bad slowly. And then I would say, I know this customer has an oil furnace. I'd say, do you have relatives staying with you? They say yes. I say, do you have a finished basement? They'd say yes. Any oil furnace should generally by code have an emergency off switch in the basement stairwell. And I said, the basement's the spare room where the relatives are staying? Yes. Um, Go check the light switches in the basement stairwell. Is the red one up or down? Oh, it's down. Switch it up. Oh, the heat came back on. Congratulations. You just saved yourself $160 call out charge and whatever else I would have, needed to do to find that. Um, but that's
That-
what we do every day is we're always taking that little piece of information and knowing what questions to ask to really understand what that person needs.
Okay, so here's my question. You
Mhm.
have less than 10 minutes and more than 10 slides.
Oh no.
What do you want to do?
Hmm. That's a very good question. I've kind of covered some of these things as I was kind of speeding through.
I am fine because you have enriched us all, and you wouldn't have to say another thing for this to have been a valuable web presentation. But
I
I
think
know,
I'm just going to throw you some inspiration with Big Bird.
okay.
And this was about 2 years ago. Because when I start a new janitorial company that I'm in charge of, I like to show up on night one for the cleaner that comes in. Because if I'm there with them the first night, if there's something that they don't know, if there's something they're unsure about, if there's something they can't find, I can answer that question on day one. And that way we can make sure that whatever they need, whatever thing they don't have, nip it in the bud. But one of the janitors a couple years ago, I showed up in my big Paddington Bear red duffel coat, and I hung out with them for a little while, and they said you have Big Bird energy, and that was probably my proudest moment in my job, um, because what they meant by that was that they were comfortable with me, and they just felt like I am a safe person, and it that is a really important thing to be if you want to be a good FM is to be someone that everybody is going to come and tell their problems to. Because if you're not, then you're not going to know about them. And if you don't know about them, you're not going to fix them. Um, and also, the great Saint Mr. Rogers, you are going to have a lot of patience in this job. You're going to meet a lot of people in their deepest moments of frustration. If you can't show up knowing that and get on the same page so that you know that there's you, there's me, and there's the problem that we're trying to solve. And I'm here to solve it. And I will gladly take your frustration knowing that as long as you are realistic with me and understand that there's rules I can't bend like physics. If a part has to come in, I will get it the fastest I can, but I cannot make a mail truck go faster. But other than that, I do care about you and I care about your problem because I want you to understand that you are supported. And after I supported people a few times over, people will be a lot more comfortable in their jobs knowing that everything is working right now, but should anything happen, this is not going to be on me. I'm going to have support. Um, mm, 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 mm. But yeah, other than that, just remember as a facility manager, we have the opportunity to improve people's lives, help people thrive in their roles, make processes that work for everybody, make everybody feel welcome when they come enter our premises, and keep people safe. And while we do all that, we maintain the assets and that's another thing actually with neurodivergent people is we tend to anthropomorphize things is very often. Um, and so to me, most of my rooftop units and my buildings and things like that, they're my patients, they're my children, they're
Hmm.
what I'm leaving behind. When my building needs something, I advocate for that building. When my staff needs something, I advocate for my staff. I don't have children. I just have a large group of people across several states and a bunch of assets that I take care of. Like those are the things that after I'm gone, for as long as I've taken care of them, they will have been taken care of and they will be better for it. And they will be better for it for the next person and they will be better for themselves down the line. And that, I mean, that's ultimately what I get up out of bed for in the morning is I have a corner of the world where I can make things work. And I know all of the frustration when things don't work and when systems do not work for me as a dyslexic person. A lot of businesses like to get me to do a lot of admin to go to, say, a doctor's appointment and things like that. The more I can do for these people, the more I know there's a corner of the world that is fair, that is just, uh, that is taking care of people, and that ultimately is why I do my job. It's
Well, that is spectacular. Can you stop sharing your screen because
yes,
um,
I'm doing that
I,
right now.
I,
There you
I,
go.
this has been spectacular, and the way you wind it up there is perfect. And will you attend the event in Washington, D.C.? Are you close enough? Can you get permission to come? We need to have.
DC is not bad. That's not that much further than Baltimore, is it? Or is it?
No, it's right in there.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I can get there. When is it?
April 27th and 28th, one of those days would be good for you to speak.
Oh, that
And
should be far enough out.
yeah, and it's not going to be an hour, but we need your energy. We need
That's
your
fine.
vision. We need what you're saying as part
What was
of
the
our
date
program.
again? I'm just putting it in my calendar now because another thing with date
27th and 28th of April.
27th and 28th. Okay.
We'll figure out which day. We don't have to do it right now, but I mean, that's how much you've impressed me is we need to have your energy in that event. So I
Awesome.
started by saying how excited I was about the event, and I'm even more excited knowing that a person like you can be helping make an international statement like this. The UN will be there. People will be coming from embassies in Washington, D.C. People will be coming from Australia. And what you said, it couldn't be said any better. So,
Awesome. Thank you so much.
well,
Um,
great. Well,
but yeah,
thank you.
happy to talk about this stuff anytime. And happy to talk to you anytime. We always have a great time.
Okay. So,
So we
let's
have questions?
see. Well, not really questions. People are just commenting,
Or
positively.
can say.
Um, so Art Kurland will be speaking if we think he's going to be there. So you and Art talking together, and that would be perfect. That would be on the 28th. But holy cow! Last week I talked about the event, series of events, and then this week we're actually putting together part of the program live during ALN Thursday at 3. This is great. So no better way to end the program than to network, connect to of our supporters, and enhance the program that we got coming up in DC. So we'll see you next Thursday. Look at the newsletter on Tuesday for the full agenda. You can go to the website and register for April 28th, and you'll get information about all the entire week. But right now, that was the only one we had that was confirmed until just today. So now we'll expand that. And Stephen, heartfelt thanks for you sharing.
Oh,
And
thanks for having me. I wouldn't do this stuff if it wasn't for you.
and we hope that it helped you for your presentation next week. And with me not being there, maybe you can get to your presentation quicker. But we spent about 20 minutes just talking before you even started. So anyway,
Usually,
yeah.
I'm hard to get off the phone.
Oh, I've got a call with our Australian colleagues. I've got to go. Thanks, everybody. Bye
Thanks
for
very
now.
much. Bye. Mm, 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 mm.